Bray Wyatt versus Matt Hardy. I understand that Bray Wyatt used to be hotter than he is now. Am I correct in this?
Oh, yeah.
I love the entrance. I've seen it a couple of times. I love the music. He didn't seem to have the oomph to me facially or whatever the fuck as he did the last time he made an entrance, but also, it was a smaller venue, which I think, is this the only thing they did in the Manhattan Center, by the way? I can't remember. Did they have another match there?
Yeah, the revival match.
But, oh God, the burial of the revival.
Yeah, well, we'll get there.
They better have the lives of a cat. All right, we'll get there. But Manhattan Center didn't get a lot of fucking love here. Apparently.
Oh no, and there's videos that have emerged of the fans. I don't want to say they were close to rioting because they're WWE fans. They're not going to riot, but they were really upset and chanting bullshit, and they got nothing. They paid huge prices for tickets to either arena, and they got some fucking bullshit variety show.
And without the threat of jumping ahead, did anybody appear for the not only the live crowd? I know a couple people for the live crowd appeared in both places. Did anybody on the broadcast appear in both places?
I actually don't know off the top of my head. I know the Miz showed up there, but was that after the broadcast went off?
I think, yeah, and Flair came into Manhattan Center out there, whatever. But the point is, how the fuck do we not know that? How the fuck did they not do a Live Aid Phil Collins? How the fuck did they not? In all seriousness, it's the fucking WWF. Whether you want to do it like if you wanted to make it gritty and grimy, like it really could have fucking happened, that's one thing. Or if you want to do it like the WWF and they both jumped in a fucking taxi cab or whatever. But how the fuck did nobody think of having a match start in one building and end in the other building? How the fuck did that not take place, Brian?
I don't know. The writing meeting must have not been that creative.
But I mean, seriously, this ain't even that fucking hard to figure out. Start and whichever, depending on whatever your situation might be, you start in the big building and end up in the little building, or vice versa. Actually, for me, the live pop, if you started even if it's not even a match, if it's a fight, but that's what they built their fucking name on, for God's sake. Can you imagine if somebody that could still fucking go, but was somewhat of Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy, two fucking freaks, and Matt Hardy there with the fucking gimmick now, looking like the fucking love child of Vincent Price and Beatrice Arthur, and Bray Wyatt, they fucking start in the little building, and then they fucking fight out, because in Manhattan Center you can go down the elevator right out on the street in New York, right? And then goddamn, whether one gets in a cab and the other one fucking carjacks somebody to follow that fucking whatever the fuck, and maybe they fight a couple of places along the way and finally end up in the goddamn parking lot of the Barclays Center in the fucking Brooklyn or wherever there's some Brooklyn landmarks. They knock over a goddamn Nathan stand, right? This could have been the Tupelo concession stand brawl of Raws. And then they fucking fight into the goddamn arena in the Barclays Center, and fucking 15,000 people go fucking berserk, and both guys are over. Something like that.
Wow, you actually think something could have been done to wake up the fans?
And then it doesn't matter who wins and who loses, and I don't understand if Matt Hardy just got broken or woken, why he just got beaten or wheaten, or why what I wrote down about their match was they started rushing through shit, because you could tell their fucking time had probably been cut. They went to a break. As soon as they came back, basically, blah, 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 Bray Wyatt hits his finish after the neck snap, 1, 2, 3. And that was, as they say, all she wrote. So, blah.
And the fans were sleeping. I mean, the fans in both buildings seemed like really quickly they realized they'd rather be anywhere else but there.
How much did those tickets run in Manhattan Center? $800. You can get a hotel and sleep in a fucking bed for less than $800 in Manhattan.
And that's another thing though. I'm sorry to cut you off, Jim, but
go ahead. Well, go ahead and cut me off.
I attended the very first Monday Night Raw, and my ticket was $12. And if you look at that crowd, you look at the traditional Manhattan Center crowd for Raw, it was different races, different ages, all sorts of different people. It was kind of like the character you would see outside the entrance at the Garden. Like those people.
It was Vladimir and Mike Johnson.
Right.
And maybe the camel.
Right. Captain Ivan, Stuart Stevenson, and his Bob Backlund for President shirt or whatever, Bob Backlund for WWF Champion shirt. Those guys weren't there. I mean, you almost had it so you priced out the people who would actually react to things. It's like Yankee Stadium. If you could afford a ticket to go in there, then you got nothing. They're all just sitting there. All these white guys are just sitting there and nothing's happening. It's just such a fucking joke.
Then, in something I did not understand, Kurt Angle entered with many of the gimmicks as a security force, and I saw several people at ringside that was not going to prevent anything from going on. And just say that. And then here comes Braun Strowman and Kane and Brock Lesnar with Paul Heyman. Of course, Paul immediately interjects fucking energy into the fucking thing and is the flawless verbal performance. And I can't say the same thing for his physical appearance, but he's always flawless verbally. So that was a mini bright spot. And somebody in the crowd had a sign, on once again on South Park, the member berries that they were doing. When it had a poster, a picture of 2 purple member berries, and it said "Member Pyro." But basically, the 3 big guys in the company have a big schmoz ahead of their big match, and Braun Strowman flattens Brock Lesnar while Kane he got taken out with a move and kind of disappeared somewhere at the end. I think he was selling, so but it was exciting, but once again, there was no matches on the wrestling show, and I know that I've just lost a lot of people there, but you've advertised a bunch of legends, but didn't give anybody really, except for obviously Steve Austin and Undertaker, but most of them didn't have a lot of anything to do. So you've diminished the value of advertising legends again, because people think, well, I didn't do anything last time, but also why have so many and not just figure out better shit for each one to do? Could there have been a legend that appeared or facilitated somehow that match I was talking about, the fight between one guy and the other guy that ends up starts in one building and ends up in another one? Start with your McMahon's and Austin segment and don't really change anything about that, except maybe make it a little more interesting. But that was great. But everybody else, it was like a personal appearance in fucking tights. Everybody talked about shit that actually there wasn't that much shit to talk about. And there was very little action of shit, and the action that there was not a lot of great action.
Did you hear the pop Eric Bischoff got?
Yeah,
and then what did he do?
It's Eric Bischoff. He points at his fucking chin and he leaves. It's Eric Bischoff on fucking Raw, and you can't figure out any. I don't.
Yeah. He's something. The guy gets one of the biggest pops of the night, and he was great on there. Whatever you want to say about Bischoff, the businessman, Bischoff is really good on air.
He's an incredible television and once again, a pattern is erupting here. All of the incredible television performers are either non-in-ring performers or retired or no longer with the company. What's wrong with this picture? But still, and John Cena tried to help make somebody. I don't know if I would have picked that fucking guy, but maybe they know things I don't, just at first glance. But otherwise, most people were. Matt Hardy, actually, I was shocked to see me. Matt is newer in wrestling terminology than Bray Wyatt is, because he's just come back, supposed to be starting a new gimmick. So I don't know that I would have necessarily picked him to get beaten by anyone, not just Bray Wyatt, but anybody at that juncture. I didn't understand the whole program. It was not something that captivated me. I do not plan to change my Monday night viewing habits from this point forward.
Yeah, here's my schedule, just so you know, for upcoming experiences. I'm going to watch the Royal Rumble because the kids like the Royal Rumble. I'm going to watch WrestleMania. I'll watch the Raw after Mania, And then if there's no Met game or nothing happening in politics, or if there's a good revival match, I'll watch Raw. But otherwise, I'm done. I think WWE's a lost cause. They don't know how to produce good television. You can talk all you want about their production team, and that's leaving out the director, because the direction of the actual matches, I know you didn't get to see too much.
Well, goddamn, yes. No, the camera fucking zooming and pulling and panning and fucking jerking, I'm a little upset with, but you know. But once again, they're the average man in the street on their crew is a very talented and dedicated professional. They're just possibly receiving some poor instruction at the top.
They don't know how to manage nostalgia. WWE owns all these catalogs. They have all these things in their archives. They don't know how to deal with nostalgia in a way that makes people go, wow, that was great. I think I'm going to tune in again next week. That show drove people off. There's no way there's no way that someone who's a casual person who doesn't watch this bullshit show every Monday saw that show and said, oh man, I gotta watch again next week. I gotta see if the crowd will be as quiet next week as they were this fucking week. That show is so bad.
I gotta see if as many people wave at me next week as waved at me this week.
What the hell? Steven Regal, they bring him out there, he gets a nice pop. I'm like, oh good, he's a great talker. He waves. It was such a fucking waste. It was a waste. That's the WWE. It's a wasted opportunity. And, you know, they'll defend it. It's like if you're in a funeral procession and you're like the fifth car behind, imagine if all of a sudden the hearse just sped away from everyone. And you're like, oh, I didn't get to the cemetery. But then they're like, oh, don't worry. The body was buried. Everything went great. Everything's great. It's just you lost everyone that was following you. Idiots.
Well,
they did the revival.
We got to see the body buried on Monday. Yeah. And no, but seriously, I can't believe. I don't know who in the wrestling end of things is involved in, as they say, writing the show these days. But once again, nobody came up with a main event showcase match that they could promote throughout the whole show for their big attraction. For some top angle or something, nobody, and I'm talking about a match that people could actually get into and could register shit that you could do a business finish out of, and then possibly have the guys that opened your show from the other building fight in for the big fucking close. Nobody thought of a goddamn, besides the McMahons and Austin, a heavy duty in-ring confrontational segment involving some legends to at least get some drama. Nobody thought to fucking elevate some of the young folks underneath.
No, it's all
while this big audience was going on, except for John Cena, who they always say never puts anybody over, and he got laid out by the fucking young kid. It just and there was too much of, I'll say this and I'm going to quit. There was too much that would appeal to fans who would then say, yeah, I remember how great that show used to be. And not enough to appeal to people who would say, wow, this is a great show. I want to watch some more of it.
It's a company without any intelligent, creative leadership. Objectively, I say that. I'm not saying that, without lots and lots of evidence. They have no intelligence.
Objectively and vindictively, you're saying.
Yeah, well, because it bothers me, because I think professional wrestling is one of the great American art forms. I know it sounds silly to say that, but I really think it is. I think it's one of the great improvisational arts of all time. And you look at what they're doing, and the storylines aren't very good. The promos are scripted, and for the most part, they're not very good. There's no good flow to the show. The commentators are just babbling fucking idiots who you have to tune out if you actually want to sit through the fucking show, because they're all terrible at what they're doing. And I don't know how much of that is they're just not good at being commentators, or this is just the way they want to do it. It's an entirely bad production.
No, I remember I actually even heard Michael Cole call a wrestling match and was amazed at when Eddie McCann. Yeah.
The British match. It's a lost cause. Who knows what happens after Vince is removed? Who knows? Because, NXT's really good and everyone's saying, oh, Hunter will take over one day.
Wait, you just said what instead of saying when he's gone, when he's removed.
That's what it's going to be.
Is it going to be an impeachment?
No, well, let's put it this way. If Vince is either removed or if the company is sold, The question becomes who leads the company, who creatively leads the company. And I don't know enough. I like NXT and I have hopes for Hunter. I hope. Although when you see something like that DX thing at the end, you realize so much of his career is really just about ego building for him and Shawn Michaels, who looks like a fucking sewer rat right now. He has 10 strands of hair. Just fucking shave your head already, you idiot. Cross-eyed goof.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Wait a minute. Have you been in my water supply? What's come into you?
No, because you know what? I look at it like I wasted my life last night watching that fucking show. Anything I would have actually enjoyed, they made sure I didn't enjoy. And it just makes no fucking sense. And my point before was, when Hunter takes over, if that is what happens, unless it's a John Ringley-like situation, or unless Shane somehow wrestles power away, or unless Fox buys the company and puts someone like Jim Herd in charge, if Hunter really is the person that takes over, it's going to be interesting. Because, you hear people like Hunter and people like Brian James, the Road Dogg, defend this philosophy of, 50-50 booking isn't that bad. This is the way it is. It works now. I don't know how much of that's a Vince philosophy that they're going to have to say they agree with, or how much of that's their legitimate philosophy about how to make wrestling work. But it's a lost cause right now.
But here's the thing I don't understand is that I worked in booking meetings of just 3 and 4 people with Vince McMahon. And there was never a time for anybody that he was pushing as babyface or a heel or just as a wrestler that he thought that they should win or lose half the time, or that they should lose half the time. I don't know where that's come from, but Vince didn't invent it. Somebody, if he agrees with it, somebody sold him on it. Or maybe he just doesn't keep track anymore.
And the other thing is, it's not fucking physics. Wrestling should be simple. Storylines should be easy to understand and should make sense from one week to the next. Steve Jobs said simplicity. That's the key to Apple. I think that's the key to wrestling. They make it so overly complicated. Just have matches, have interviews where guys explain why they hate the other guy, have the other guy say, fuck that guy, I'm going to kick his ass Sunday night, have people believe it. I mean, it's just, they produce a show that does nothing to make me, a lifelong wrestling fan, come back and watch again. It bothers me to this point because they've done everything they can to drive everyone out of fucking business. And this is the state of the wrestling industry. And this isn't going to change, but still, I thought it was the worst fucking show. It was a waste of my life watching that fucking show.
Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it for Jim Cornette. I'm the great Brian Last. We've exchanged... We got in Professor Whoopi's fucking brain transfer machine, but those comments that Jim Cornette just made are certainly not reflective of my viewpoints, folks. So if you want to sue anybody, sue Jim Cornette, not me, the great Brian Last.